You have to stand up to tyrants. You have to take some risks. And it's not just because it will save the lives of our Ukrainian friends, important as that is, it's because it will affect us all wherever we live. And not just through what President Putin takes as a sign that it's open season, that nothing happens when you breach these international laws, but that other less democratic leaders, autocrats, despots around the world will say, well, the West talks a lot, but they talk a good game, but they'll never stop us. So we might as well just go and take this piece of land that we think should be ours. And the entire world order breaks down if you allow that to happen.
Grant Shapps, the former Conservative Defence Secretary who lost his seat at the last election, says that the UK is forcing Ukraine, quotes, to fight with one arm tied behind its back because of a policy which prevents President Zelensky from using UK missiles to strike inside Russia. This comes amid escalating violence in the region, which has seen many civilian deaths in Ukraine. Grant Shapps joins us now here on Sunday morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Now, what exactly are you suggesting needs to be done by the British government?
So there's been a long history now of us being the lead when it comes to ensuring that Ukraine hasn't been overrun by Russia. I think the expectation over 2 years ago is that would happen very quickly. President Zelensky says, he said it to me directly, if it wasn't for Britain, we probably wouldn't be in this war now. We would have been overrun. So I think we have a special uh, lead in this. And one of the difficult decisions is where are the weapons that we provide, where should they be permissioned to be used? And I have said today that it is now, I think, essential that we use those in a way that provides an ultimatum to Putin. If he carries on launching glide bomb attacks from Russian territory, killing Ukrainian men, women, and children, destroying infrastructure, and an illegal process because you shouldn't go after civilians and civilian infrastructure in war, then there is a price to pay. And the price to pay is that we permission our missiles to hit the locations that have been used to fire or launch attacks on Ukraine from, even if they're within Ukraine,
I mean,
Russia.
you've been involved. How does this process actually work? It seems odd that you can provide a missile to someone and then put caveats on how they can use it.
Yes, that's true. That, in a sense, that's true, and that's why I think actually all the logic is to say, look, you've got them, you can use them for technical reasons. They which I can't go into, but it does require some additional permissioning, and I think it's very important we understand. I mean, you mentioned in your intro, I lost my seat in the early hours of the 5th of July, and I was no longer Defence Secretary as well, and I willingly handed over that power because what I believe in more than anything else is democracy. And even when I don't win the argument, I believe in handing it to where it's democratically been placed. Putin does not believe that. He doesn't believe it for Russia. He doesn't believe it for Ukraine, and he wouldn't believe it for us if he has half the chance. We have to get real and understand that it is our way of life that's under attack here, and that's why I think it's so important that we do provide these permissions.
So why didn't you do it when you had the option to do it, to give the green light when you were in office?
So again, difficult to go into too much detail, but you will have seen that the United Kingdom led during that period on, for example,
Yeah, but on this
allowing
specific, you didn't
yes.
give the
So,
permission
so
on
so let
Storm
me give it a little
Shadows.
bit of
Yeah.
context. It's the sort of so you will have seen that, for example, the Black Sea Fleet no longer operates in the Black Sea. First time in 250 years. That's the Russian Black Sea Fleet. That's because the United Kingdom led in allowing Storm Shadow and other missiles to be used in Crimea. And we led, and other countries followed us. What I'm proposing is that same process, and so that was in progress, if you like. I think it's now time to make it happen. The other big difference is the glide bombing from Russia is a relatively new aspect of this war, which hasn't been happening from the get go.
I mean, the problem is that it might make the UK a target. President Putin has threatened repeatedly against escalation.
So, what are we to do if we are prepared to allow a bully to tell us you must just allow this democratic neighbor of Russia's to be crushed, and if you don't, then we'll get to know. If you allow that to happen, right now, we have seen enough history of the 20th century to understand how that particular movie ends. You have to stand up to tyrants. You have to take some risks. And it's not just because it will save the lives of our Ukrainian friends, important as that is, it's because it will affect us all wherever we live. And not just through what President Putin takes as a sign that it's open season, that nothing happens when you breach these international laws, but that other less democratic leaders, autocrats, despots around the world will say, well, the West talks a lot, but they talk a good game, but they never stop us. So we might as well just go and take this piece of land that we think should be ours. And the entire world order breaks down if you allow that to happen. And that is why it's important that we stand up for what we believe in. As I said at the end of my Sunday Times argument, I'm essentially saying I want the right to be a political loser.
Grant,
Putin doesn't understand that.
Grant Shapps, you have the right to be a political loser. You have entirely got that right. You've been talking there about kind of responsibilities. I know that you have commented and called it student politics that Keir Starmer has taken the decision to remove some licenses from Israel. I just have to ask you, were you aware of legal advice on this issue when you were in office? Because there are some who say that the previous government was told that maybe some of these export licenses should have been suspended and that advice was ignored. Were you aware of that?
No, it's not quite how it works. No is the answer. The advice doesn't come to me. It doesn't go to the defense secretary. That's not how it operates. But be clear. Advice is given. Ministers decide. Advisors advise. Ministers decide. There is a
They do have
broad
to obey the
degree.
law, though, don't they?
Yes, but the the advice that comes through doesn't say this is legal, this is illegal. It says these are the judgment calls that you'll need to take into account when deciding. So it's not a black and white thing as sometimes people imagine. And the reason I
So,
say that David,
but was
sorry,
was I and you answered that question quite a smart way, if you'll forgive me saying, because you said that you hadn't
no,
seen
the
the
advice
legal
didn't come to
advice.
me, so I
Yes,
didn't.
that's what you said. It didn't come to you, but I didn't ask that. I asked whether you were aware of any advice, whether you were aware that David Cameron had been given any advice. Were you aware of any?
Well, we all know that he was given advice because he said he was given advice. I didn't see that advice, and I don't know specifically what it said, but I do know how these types of advisements work, and I can tell you why. I was business secretary at some point prior to being many other secretaries of state, but prior to being defense secretary. And in that particular role, advice would come to me on these matters. So I have seen how it operates. But no, I didn't see advice in this particular case. But either way, what I can tell you about this is there is a broad degree of political discretion involved, as well there should be. We live in a democracy. People vote for stuff. And so it's usually a question of saying, look, on one hand, this, on the other hand, that. Uh, how much weight do you want to give to these competing arguments? And that
Yeah.
is the decision that the foreign secretary and the business secretary will have actually made. And my point is, they've come down on the wrong side of that advice because once you start going after the democratic country rather than the terrorists who have created the problem in the first place, then what you do is tell other terrorists, you know what, just hold out, keep those hostages. Eventually, the West
Yeah.
crumbles.
Finally, very, very briefly, you can give me a yes or no if you like. You are running James Cleverly's campaign. Is he going to make it to conference?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Confidence, full
Well,
confidence.
you're a number cruncher. I just wondered one final question on that. Were you lent, was his campaign lent MPs votes by the Generic campaign?
No, I think that story is absolute nonsense. Actually, I think a lot of this is commentators look at all this. They usually don't get the first clue what's really happened. Then they're quite surprised when they see what actually has happened because they haven't seen the detail in the first place. Then the next stage is to go and make up stories or find people who report a made up story about people lending votes. It's an absolute load of nonsense. What I'm confident about is everyone in this, all of my colleagues standing for the leadership are all out there to maximize their votes. I don't think there's any chance whatsoever of anyone going, you know what, don't vote for me, vote for someone else at this stage. They'd be mad if they were to do that, by the way. And I just don't believe the story at all. But to answer your first question, yeah, I think James Cleverly, obviously, I think he's the best person to lead the party. I think he'll have the best chance of connecting with the country as well. I think he will not only make it to conference, but I actually think he's going to win the leadership overall.
Grant Shapps, former Defence Secretary, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.